play, but finally back in front of the where the fucking magic happens in front of the camera.
I'll say good to see you. Obviously, I saw you today in the office, but good to see you online in this particular forum anyway. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done one. And I think, to be fair, the little bit of rain that we had this time last week where you had to go and pick up your daughter unexpectedly, etc., contributed to us actually delaying to here we are now.
Yes.
So apologies
everyone.
Yes, thanks for your understanding about what's going on, mate. We were just sort of saying off air for sort of 30 seconds before we started. It's been a little while since we have had the opportunity to engage with our team and sort of put on a bit of a show here, engage with our community. But most importantly, it's been a few weeks since they've had access to us, so it absolutely goes both ways. As we got Patina Ryan joining us, Jai Simmons in the house, Junior Herman saying hello as well. So, yeah, it's going to be – I'm really looking forward to seeing what's on everyone's mind and what's everyone thinking about. And, you know, the whole thing about this being a Q&A is exactly that. You and I can jaw off and bloody put on a dog and pony show to the cows come home, but really we're here to answer people's questions, yeah?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Now, speaking about good people as they continue to roll in, they put it on Facebook, so it's public. It's Facebook official and public. Kelly and Hugh, a massive, heartfelt and sincere, amazing congratulations from everyone here at Axon with your recent announcement of your engagement. And, it's the rest of your life is what I know you guys have both got to look forward to. I loved interviewing you guys on a podcast together and then separately with you, Hugh, over the last 6 months or so. And, to know so much about your story and put a plan in place and be part of your journey, we remain humbled and we remain honoured to be on your team. And, here's to the future for both of you. So, a massive congrats. There we go. Renee Fordyce is in the house. Chrissy Phillips, what's up? You're on the road today, buddy. I spoke to you. You took the Venga bus. Venga bus. I'll even tell you where she was because you can't fucking get any land anywhere. She was up at the Sunshine Coast today, cruising around. So and some other sort of areas in the northern Brisbane growth corridor as well. CJ Wynn's in the house. Evening, gents. First live in 6 months. It's not our first live in 6 months, but it's the first live for you in 6 months, brothers. Welcome back to Australia. I know it's been a few weeks since you've been back, and I know you've been, seeing the sights. And we had a wonderful catch-up chat, and we're going to see each other on the weekend and all that sort of stuff. I fucking love it when clients, Dane, are not just your clients; they're actually your mates as well.
100%. It's so rewarding. I actually Timmy McGregor and I also want to give a shout out, obviously, to Hugh and Kel. Like, when I saw that, I was like, fuck, Hugh is getting his shit together, which is great. Got out, he's got a sweet job, he's helping the defence community, and now he's finally put a ring on it. So great work, buddy. I was super happy.
Like, met us, bought a house, building a house, successfully transitioned, both got jobs, both giving back to the, defence and health sector communities. And now, engaged, and bloody away we go from there. So just remember, guys, for the invite, there's 2 B's and 2 R's. 2 R's in Turner and 2 B's in Robbie. So just in case you're wondering what to put on my invite there. So that was a bit bloody cheeky, wasn't it? Sammy Wynn replying, so happy for you guys. 100%. And it's good, that it's we've got a real Axon community in that Western growth corridor of Brisbane, Dane, scattered amongst a number of different suburbs. There's lots of people living out there. There's lots of people that are invested out there. There's, clients of ours that have got houses out there that have gone up in value $200,000 over the last 18 months or 2 years that have got defence people living in the house that are posted to RAF-based Ambly. So, it's absolutely amazing. And my mum's joined us as well today. Tonight, Mum, thank you for the little welfare call earlier today. I know that, you're always inside my OODA loop, which is that observe, orientate, decide, act. I said about that on a podcast during the week. And, just to know that no matter where our parents are around the world, they know when a nice little call from home just goes such a long way. It was great to get your counsel on a few things today, Mum. I take it to heart, of course. And when I said that Tam and I have already implemented a few things as we reflect upon, couple of weeks past events, and we're already implementing some of the things that you were suggesting, having had an extensive and amazing, very high management career in that sort of Kmart Coles world, then, mate, it's good to know that your son, the old apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Axon Property Group, no, the rest of us have feelings too, 100%. Thanks, Chris. All right. Ladies and gents, for your first-time listeners, you know how this works, right? We're here to effectively answer all of your questions. So go ahead, hit us up with anything to do with the ADF, talking about transition, talking about property, talking about how to be a veteran business owner, how to be a GC, quite frankly. That'll go a long way. We have a little saying, haven't we, Dane? Just be a GC on the GC. You should be right.
I haven't heard it for a little bit, but it is true.
It is true. It is true. Mate, so whilst everyone's no doubt busily typing away their questions there, finance, delays, property growth, fucking you name it, contracts, there's absolutely everything that we've had come our way over the last couple of weeks. Justin Simmons, good to see you, my man, as well. Dane, what about you, bud? And I know people love getting the insights into what you and I have been up to. So, mate, what's been happening in your world for the last little while?
Mate, mine's been, I think, so obviously coaching, right? That goes without saying. The sort of,
yes, you
I'm
are
going to say swaying into the boys' lane in the property specialist. I'm a bit of a creature of habit going in there. I do like talking properties and getting in there and hanging around the area, as they say. But one of the things I've sort of liked is probably there has been a bit of when we sort of educate through coaching, stuff we sort of were doing has evolved a lot. I know you and I sort of had a sync to keep on the same page, because even though you get the both of us, whichever avenue you go down, you're still going to get the end result, because obviously we have personalities and they're going to shine through. One of the things we're going to talk to tonight, mate, is finance. Talking to people about finance, the importance of it, because we are seeing a bit of a shift, let's be honest, in Queensland, which is probably just catching up with the other states and a lot of the developers that are coming up who are like, what the fuck's a finance course? But it's being able to come and talk to people about that, the risks associated with it, and so on and so forth. So it's one where I used to not worry, man, too much, because I'll be like, hey, man, we're protected. But it's a different process. You know, It carries a different risk, and obviously we need to be educated on that risk when we move through. So it's been pretty much in my neck of the woods, man. I know you want to share a bit about it tonight, but that has been something I've been talking to a lot of people about.
Yeah, mate, it's really glad. So just from a internal Axon Dynamics perspective, team, we've got everyone now. So we had our amazing level 8 office, which we've still got. Some people came down there and they've sat up there in the chair and they're just looking out the window. I'm like, no, look at the screen. Your plan's up on the screen. So we've still got the level 8, but we're morphing out of level 8, and I think it was like September, October last year, we occupied another space because we grew to like 16, 17 people all working out of that level 8. And when there's people like you and I, mate, that want to give effort and energy and experience and therefore volume into the calls that we're making, you and I were finding that we had to like fucking go out in the car park and talk to someone because we were interrupting everyone with our exuberance.
Phone call corner. Remember I was telling you about that one? You're like, where are you taking that phone call? I was like, behind a whiteboard against the window. I was like, mate, something's got to change.
Yeah, of course. So when there's people in the office tapping me on the shoulder going, hey, boss, we need some more space here. So we went and got another space. So we're down on level 6 as well. Just with a sort of few internal changing processes and personalities and whatever else, we've now effectively all moved down to level 6. And it's a much, much bigger space. There's lots of little breakout rooms. You and I can go in there and not stand behind a whiteboard. We can actually close the door behind us and sit and talk and have a Zoom or just jaw off on the phone. So it's been really, really good from a ops management and level of awareness perspective for me especially, to be down there and basically walking the floor. And I know you take an active role in that as well. And I really love the support we can provide the build support team, the support we can provide the property specialist, because I think I've got probably the better part of 50 EOIs that have been submitted over the last, give or take, 6 months that are all in like the contracts and finance land now, as you were sort of talking about before, Dane. But there's probably about the same amount of clients that we're trying to find properties for. So that have already gone past the success package. So there's a huge volume of people, which is absolutely amazing, that are yet to even settle on their blocks of land. That, when there's 3 or 4 guys that work in the property specialist team, then I guess it's a little bit extra horsepower that comes in from you and I, mate, to make sure that those processes are a bit smoother. I can see there's a couple of questions coming in from CJ and Renee, which is great. So yeah, I'm loving the dynamic, and you and I are real. We're live wires. People know that. That's when you and I are on fire and we're bouncing off each other, the vibe in the office has got no choice but to be reasonably high. but I guess from an overall workplace sort of assessment and making sure that people are taking breaks and people are not working too hard and people are looking after themselves and there's limited stress and burnout and stuff going on, it gives me certainly a bit more of oversight about what's going on, as opposed to just letting people do shit and there's no supervision.
I think being like you said before, there's a lot of breakout rooms, but before we're kind of doubling breakout rooms with team areas. So you did have it, even though you get around and you talk to your team all the time, you still have that wall of communication blockage. So it's nice having an open floor where you can sort of, hey man, yep, and you sort of get around like you said and press the flesh, but we still are able to get that space if you need it when you talk to clients and so on and so forth. But I did have a funny one, and I know Robbie, you're probably like, fuck, why are you telling the story? But when we were doing the transition and we're going from 8 to 6, and I did have a client come in. And I was like, oh, we're just going to go upstairs to 8. So we showed up and they're like, wow, look at this view. Whereas because where we are, we needed a bit more space at 6. We're looking to the south side. We can see a bit of the marina and everything like that, but it still doesn't have the same thing. But in the end, it was a necessary move. And I think it's been way better for the team.
Yeah, it's really good. It's even though the coaches and a couple of select others were working upstairs, it just created that us and them vibe. And that's the last thing I want to do. Like, we all remember from our time in the military, and so many people that are still in the military, your higher headquarters, whether it's section headquarters, platoon headquarters, company headquarters, or all the way to the top, Army or Air Force or Navy headquarters, your next higher headquarters is always known as what? Bullshit castle, right? Or the ivory tower, depending on the level it is. So what are those fuckers up there in bullshit castle, doing and thinking? Noting, of course, that they were in your shoes one day as they grew and went up the ranks as well. So, I'm really, really glad that we've sort of eliminated that, and we're all down there as one big happy family, mate, which is bloody amazing.
Which is great.
Right, let's do a couple of questions. Renee Fordyce, I want to do yours first. Sorry, Soph, I sold you a little dummy there, didn't I?
Oh yeah, I was considering taking the CJ win, and then you answered the Renee, and we sort of bounce up. But anyway.
Only because this is a pretty simple one. So anyone who owns a block of land across Australia is going to get a Valuer General report or valuation report on your block of land, regardless about whether it's got no dwelling, a massive apartment complex, or a single dwelling on it. Right? Now, when we want a valuation to come in, and I hope no one from the Land Valuer General's office is listening. Pretty fucking unlikely, right?
Food them out, Sophie. Food them out.
When we're talking about when we want to place a value on anything that we have bought, team, we want it to go up in value, don't we? That's the course we want. That's called return on investment, isn't it? Right. But of course, so we've got 3 different types of valuations. We've got a bank valuation. We've got a market valuation. So bank valuation is all about mortgage security. Market valuation is all about how much could you sell it for if you wanted to sort of sell it in the next 6 or 8 weeks. And that's what a real estate agent does for you as opposed to a mortgage broker. But when the Valuer General's report comes in, they're assessing the land value, and then therefore that relates directly to how much rate you pay. So in that instance, it's a little bit counterintuitive, Renee. Do you want the value of your land to be super high? It's got to do with how much rate you're going to pay, or do you want it to be reasonably conservative and only pay that much rates? It's a no-brainer, right? I and my portfolio, and Dane and your portfolio, and everyone else has got a portfolio as well. You're going to get all of them arrive within a week or so in the mail, and you look at it and go, yep, whatever. Like, I'm glad that the land values are actually quite conservative, because that means I'm paying less rates. And I don't know about you, but rates are like tax. You try and fucking pay as less amount of them as you can. So, our current land valuations reflecting current recent floods, even if our land didn't flood. So, Renee, be happy, buddy, that the once in a lifetime or once in a 1,000-year flood, as I think I heard Stephen Miles talk about, the Deputy Premier here in Queensland. If your property didn't flood in a once in a 1,000-year flood, it's probably never going to flood, right? We've got... thanks, Tammy. So Tamara's got our own block of land that she owns that averaged over a number of years, so not current value, whereby we've got about 350 properties scattered around all of Southeast Queensland, and guess how many of them went under with a flood perspective? 0. So that's a good bit of peace of mind. that the due diligence that we go through and the selection process and the discarding of some properties process, that none of them are flooded. So yeah, don't be concerned about that, Renee, that your property, the value might be a little bit softer. I can't actually, I was trying to scroll down, but I've got my wife's mouse here and now I can see it's different. Dane, I'll ask this one to you, mate, from CJ.
Yeah.
Question for the wider audience. Have come home from an overseas trip and casting an eye over our house and looking at a couple of things, but don't want to overinvest. Looking at exposing, coating their garage floor and putting up some fake wall greenery for some of the fence lines that the windows look out to. Is that overdoing it, or is it set and forget that kind of stuff worthwhile? And just to put it in context, team, that CJ and Sam will be moving out of their current PPOR most likely at the end of next year or possibly the year after. So, this is almost a bit of a, how much do you want to spend now to make it look and appear pretty and nice and functional whilst you're living in it for the next couple of years? But then, of course, when you're not living in it anymore, are you going to get a return on that investment, just due to some additional stuff that you placed on there? Dane, what are your thoughts, mate?
So this is very individual in nature, this response. I've got epoxy flooring in a garage, and that garage is the house I live in. But I'm not moving from it. Whereas my investment properties, like the return, if I don't think it's going to set me apart from something and I'll be able to charge more rent or anything, I probably wouldn't do it. This is myself though, but at the same time you're living there, so I understand that. If it's an out and out investment, you need to be comfortable as well, CJ. So I think it might be a bit of an individualism. Like if you're like, hey, I'm putting a slide out the back and I'm going to fucking put a pool in, I'd be doing a big no. It probably comes down to a bit of like, well, what are you putting into it? What's the benefit you're getting from having that? And when you do move out and it does just become a pure investment, putting up some fake wall greenery along the fence, probably something that you're probably not going to give a shit about then. But noting that you're there for a year and a half, it really depends. It's a much of a muchness from my point of view. In the end, Robbie and I have different opinions. I'm assuming, mate. What do you think?
No. I'm broadly in line. Like at the end of the day, when you have purely bought a property to make money from it, and you're not like, you've got one leg over the fence at the moment. That's my little leg. There's another one underneath there, I promise, right? Because you're living in it, but it's going to be an investment down the track. All you care in the long term is the fact that it's going up in value whilst you're living in it, and you don't have any tax breaks coming your way. So you're benefiting from it. Your net position will be better, and you can access that equity to buy your next investment property in the meantime whilst you move out of it. But once you move out of it and it turns into a pure money-making machine, don't overcapitalize on a fucking cent, because you just might spend $5,000 on stuff, but that doesn't mean you're going to get $50 a week extra in rent. And even then it's going to take you many, 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 many weeks down the track just to even break even. So, you get the picture, right? So yeah, everything that you said then, Dane, is absolutely spot on, mate.
Yep. Sweet.
Make it nice for a couple of years, and when you go to the supplier and you buy that stuff and you erect it, enjoy the fuck out of it whilst you've got it. And your next tenants will probably love it too, and they'll appreciate you for it, because it will be something different that most other pure property investors, as evidenced by Junior Herman's sort of comment there, fuck no, why would you do it? It's an investment, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So even Tammy's 8 meters that way, I wouldn't put the epoxy down. Our last rental, they put rubber grid style mat, the gym style mats down on the garage floor. It kept it looking nice and didn't damage the floors. Could be something you could take or take it or keep it to the tenants that makes it look. Yes, there are other floor covering options which make the garage floor look fucking awesome. Yeah, we've definitely lived in a place like that. Dane, can you ask me the question from the Mr. Cooney, please?
All right.
Recently.
Okay, so heard a talking head via the ABC mention a possible increase in rates from the RBA has to happen someday. Due to the increase in the Australian dollar versus the US dollar, yes, it's gone up over the last 12 months. So it's 76 cents at the moment. But over the last 5 years, it would average, and I'm not going to be able to read the next.
Average out pretty easily. Also, RBA rate change prior to Fed election would have to be unlikely. Very true. I was listening to Koshi, who was talking to old mate Tom Petrowski at bloody Comsec this morning on the Sunshine Show, and they're like, "There's no fucking way there's going to be a rate change between now and effectively mid-year." they're waiting for the March quarter stats to come out anyway.
What
is the real risk of a bank rate rise for new loans? Because also we've locked in at the ground level for current loans, right, guys? So I don't provide many guarantees in life. Fuck, how could I? Why would I? None of us have a crystal ball. One thing I will guarantee, apart from rate rise, is that shit changes all the time. And if you are unwilling to move with the times and you are stuck in your ways and you stamp your feet and you howl at the moon and wonder why it fucking doesn't howl back, you're going to fucking hate the rest of your life. So just take that for what it's worth. Yes, mate, interest rates are going to go up, and they're at. It's interesting that the RBA taking at 0.76 at the moment. So the cash rate from the RBA is 0.1. And what Koshi and stuff was saying this morning is might jump to 0.25. You know, I've got the power team of perspective about being in the property market for probably longer than the majority of the rest of you. So it's when I first joined this industry 9 years ago, it's coming up on, in fact, in another few weeks' time, 2013 to now 2022. If you had a 20% deposit, which is no lender's mortgage insurance, so there's lower risk for the banks, cheaper interest rate, on your own home, which is lower risk for the banks, cheaper interest rate, 20% deposit on your own home 9 years ago, that if you had a 5 in front of your interest rate, you were fucking happy. You're as happy as what everyone is right now with interest rates so low. So I guess I just ask you to put it in perspective that, first of all, when the bank and Deb, etc., and your mortgage broker has done an analysis on your ability to safely acquire the property and borrow the money, they haven't done the assessment on the 3.03% interest rate that you might have right now. They've done it at like a 2 or 3% buffer on top of that. So like, what if interest rates are actually, team, 5.5 or 6%? Can you still service the mortgage at that without fucking eating Nazi goring noodles for the rest of your life? So please rest assured that. So the real underlying question, Paul, that you've got there, if I'm reading you correctly, mate, is the lack of cash flow that's going to come into your property due to the higher interest rates is going to be, you know, how's that going to affect your ability to hold the property over a longer term? Do you remember, team, one of my coaching philosophies is good property investors don't just buy houses or property. That's my little house. That's a roof. They buy time to hold that property over a longer period. So when you, it's no good putting a cash flow strategy or structure in place and you've got to sell the property a year later, because then when it goes up by 200 grand 2 years after that, you fucking miss out. So you kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So you got to plan for the long term. That's a throwaway line. No worries. But please rest assured in the short term, like the likelihood of interest rates going up to 5.5 or 6%, which is highly likely what your loan was actually assessed at, is fucking underneath this table that I'm sitting at. So just everyone can just calm their farm for many, many years down the track. And obviously in many, many years down the track, if interest rates do get to a point where it's unsustainable, you look at restructuring your portfolio and you look at refinancing or selling out of a property that you've got 400 grand of equity in, which is what the current rate of bloody growth is. So there are options down the track. And just finally, Dane, before I hand over to you, I see that it's even more important to keep your mortgage broker and your property coaching team as close as possible. So we remain nimble and we can basically move with the times. And we do that J35, that's future ops planning for you along the whole way there. Sorry, Sophie, there's another acronym on the back channel, J35, future ops, whereby we're not caught off guard either. And we don't get to a point where you can't service a loan and we haven't thought about it.
Mate, it's kind of a bit like slow dancing, right? You don't want to make any sudden movements and scare someone off. So when they do it, it's very incremental. and when they are doing it as well, like when they do assess your loan, they do have fat in it. Like they do. Like it's like when they're taking in the rent, they don't take 100% of the rent they think you're going to get. They'll take 80% of it. Like they're already stress testing you going against this. So the other thing is, it's so surprising how many people you meet that already have a property. And you go, interest rates at the moment, you can get like 2.5% fixed. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, well, what are you? And they're like, oh, man, I'm on like 5.25. And I'm like, do you ever go and look back over and have it assessed? Do you have like a yearly, we talk about our end of build coachings and getting back in with our 6 monthly checkup where we go and have a look at the market environment. Can we take advantage of a better rate or a better structure or a better system? What equity do you have? So many people just go, boom, got my mortgage, off I go. And they never look at it again. And you said, I've heard you before, Robbie, say it, like banks are fantastic at getting new business, terrible at retaining it. Because they're kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, sweet, I've dealt with that now. He's over there. And he has to go back into the pool and work out that there's a better rate for him to get. So I think it's one of those things where it is very important to keep assessing, but also be mindful the economists that sit in behind the Australian government aren't going to sit there and go, jack it up to 7, because we'd all be, they don't want to do that. They don't want to break the economy or the market in the housing sector. So it's a very incremental movements, nice and slow, like slow dancing.
Yeah, love it. You know what? I love it when you're on these calls tomorrow because you're not decisively engaged in the conversation and you sit back and think about things a bit more. The cash flow of your property. So first of all, it has an outgoing which has an interest rate attached to it. And Debbie, your as always, your input is much valued and very timely. It has an outgoing to it, which is it's got the interest rate applied, which is part of Paul's question in the first place. But it's got 2 forms of income, especially as an investment property. It's got a rent return and a tax return. So when you join those 2 forms of income together, as long as you're in front after you take the 2 forms of income into play, there's no reason why you can't hold the property. So Deb's talking about that 70 or 80% of the rental income used. So can you just bring up Debbie's comment for me, please? All the calcs, as Deb's saying, the calculators that she's required to, and each bank has their own serviceability calculator. So Deb's got an overall calculator that she does effectively the numbers on. If the numbers work, then she does her finance assessment, and obviously the bank A that she uses, she has to use bank A's calculator, and they've all got different servicing parameters. But no matter what, as she says in there, all calculators, they shave the rent, as that's called, by 70 to 80%. So your $500 a week rent that you're actually going to get is not what's taken into account. So that lowers down your borrowing capacity. And as Deb's saying there, and it's normally at the 3% interest rates you're not going to get, the banks actually take the interest rate up here. So that lowers the amount you can, So if the banks are willing to lend you the money, Paul and anyone else following this conversation, which should be all of you, and we're talking about fucking money, it's the most important thing, right? That's why you're in the wealth game. The world doesn't run on love, trust, and pixie dust only. You do need money in your life to fucking avoid a whole lot of unhappiness. Please, there's so many more factors that go into it, team, than just what's going on with the RBA and the interest rates and the federal election. So yeah, hopefully, give us a bit of a shout out in the chat there about whether you guys sort of feel as if what's going on and the sensationalism that the bloody media provides, what's going on with that fucking interest rate change. What about the extra $100 a week in rental income you got from the time that your tenants moved out last time to this time? That's fucking $5,000 a year. No interest rate's going to bloody, impact that.
That puts an importance on. We're sort of saying, like, make sure you get your portfolio reviewed, and we talk about 6 months annually and all that sort of stuff. Is like Tam has put there. It was another thing that's surprising when people go get rent and they go, and the rental manager goes, hey, you can put it up 10, or the rental manager is, I don't know what they're fucking smoking. They've got no idea what's going on in the market. And they say, we recommend you do the same. And then you find, hey, other properties are getting 550. Why am I charging 500? So you've got to make sure, like, your portfolio requires management as you move through. You've got to keep your eye on the market. Can I charge more rent? Is it going to maintain that? Will people still want to rent it if I go to that? Like, you've got to lean on your experts when you move through it.
Yeah. Zachy Jordan, my man, I've got it in my thing here. 3 land settlements last week. You and 2 others. Love, trust, and pixie dust. You and 2 others, my man, settled last week. So, yes, there are still blocks of land settling, ladies and gentlemen, even though that everything's being pushed to the right a lot. So, yeah, Zach, so happy that you're good to go, mate. I do actually believe I'll have to go back and check my notes. I think I'm actually going to take up the coaching of you, mate. So, yeah, I'll certainly – or you, Dane, if you got Zach under your belt. Can you know?
Well, I don't have my book with me, but one or the other.
Anyway, when we do your build support handover, brother, either myself or Dane will be there, and we'll sort of introduce ourselves and get you under our wing, and away we go from there. I know the build support team are really looking forward to speaking to you. So yeah, we had a couple of land settlements last week. Deb got 2 finance approvals literally today, which is amazing. Nick and Claire building their second property with us, and also Gemma, who's going ahead and building her first property with us up at the sunny coast. So yeah, it's so good that even though things have been delayed and things are being pushed to the right, and et cetera, whence in the name of concurrent activity and in the name of us, being very, very, very military style planning, I suppose, about as soon as we can go ahead and do something, i.e. get valuation access, we're out there straight away. As soon as we know that land settlement's starting to approach, bang, let's get in touch with the client. Let's get in touch with the solicitor. Let's get the funds transferred in plenty of time so we don't miss that window. I call it the sliding doors moment. Those that haven't seen the sliding doors movie, do yourself a favor. It's a bit of a rom-com, but certainly...
How old is that?
About as old as you.
VHS.
So it's a bloody good movie, and yeah, I use that sliding doors analogy in my life all the time. I do. I love that movie amongst other things. Tamari, no need to embarrass me anymore.
No, keep them coming.
Speaking of finance, let's sort of keep talking about that for a second, and certainly Dane will roll into the finance clause conversation in a second as well. As there are so many clients that effectively took the plunge and had a crack. When's Robbie's rom-com about Axon being filmed? Benny Ketchum, there's about fucking 10 different movies that I could produce and direct and provide you guys a whole lot of laughs and cringes and hang-ups and the like. But I'll keep them all to myself for now, mate, as I think that's one of those things. Lukey Millwood's in the house. Good to see you again, brother. That's I know you're back from Timor now, which is amazing. Hope you and Fran are doing well. Jovial and informative as always. A good mate of mine said a couple of years ago, he's like, first of all, you're like the honey badger of property investing. And he's like, it's like going to a comedy show, listening to you blokes, but you actually learn something. I'm like, well, that's good. Certainly, Dane, between you and I, we've got that covered. We've been able to put some plans together, mate, haven't we, Dane, about clients that have made equity and they took the plunge back in early 2020-ish, early 21, to say, we know there's a lot of craziness going on in the world right now. We know the block and the property is going to take a little while longer to build, but we believe in where we're buying. We believe in the fundamentals about what's there from an infrastructure and stats and growth and population stuff going on, even with the borders closed. And they had a crack and they bought a property. And Deb's now doing some refinancing of their portfolio. And the verbal sort of update that she's given us recently anyway is that the valuations of the bank still being conservative of their current property. Some of them are up to like $220,000 more in value. Amana Lewis, I just saw you on the line before. You and Ryan are obviously very happy with, what the current state of play is with your property, for instance, as you guys move into your second one. It's just so fucking good, Dane, that there's not 40, 50, 60 grand of equity there. There's a couple of $100,000 of equity there in most instances. And it just makes it so much easier for people to be able to then move from one property to the next. Benny Ketchum, you're going to be next cab off the rank real soon as far as this goes. Obviously, as long as the clients can service and get access to what that Huey Allen, you're another one, but everyone is here right now, quite frankly. So, mate, Dane, as coaches, it's really, really great, isn't it, that the belief and the systems and the processes that we never, ever deviate from actually work. And the ultimate test of that is when someone wants to buy their second property and Deb comes back and says, wow, we've got an amazing bank valuation and we're now going to proceed.
It's I spit my coffee out every time I look at the list when Deb shows us. Like, holy fuck, look at that. And I love doing the follow-on coaching calls with them because I go, so now we've got a bank valuation of this. We can use that. And they're just like, this is just too good. This is just too good. I'm like, I can't promise you capital growth, right? But you are using it right now. And it's good for them because I think the very first property, and I've sort of said it a few times, it always requires sacrifice for a lot of people. Sometimes they're just like, fuck, yeah, I just can't get started because now I can't drink my 6 schooners on a Friday night in my Parmigiana. So they've got to do it the hard way at the start. Might get a bit of a leg up being in defence using your housing entitlements. But once you get that first one, so we always talk about the gooses that lay the golden eggs. Once you get one goose behind you, though, it's like a snowball going down the mountain. It starts getting bigger and bigger, and it's easier. You know you can do it because now you've got something else helping you going for property number 2. And, mate, I've been frothing when I see those, and sometimes I fucking message Deb on the side, like, how fucking good is this?
Yeah.
The price going, let's be honest, through COVID, when you got the naysayers and it's going down 30% and all that sort of stuff, where they said, no, we're gonna go with the guidance and we're gonna trust our gut and move forward in this. And it's just paid off so much for countless clients too, which is great. Like every time you and I go, oh, where did they buy it? And we're like, oh yeah, and we see what they paid. We're just like, fuck, this is gonna be too good,
mate. I did it today. Even we did a great little build support handover to Renee with the wonderful Lockie and Cody. They met me in April 2020. And they went, and it was funny when I first met them. Like, Cody's like, oh, but I don't want to get in this debt, and like, what if we can't pay it? Like, she really needed to sort of work on her money mindset as far as that goes, and she eventually did it. They went and got their first property under their belt. They had some significant changing of circumstances unexpectedly. They had to withdraw from that EOI. We eventually found them another one, and now they've just settled on their block of land. They're about to start the build. When they put the expression of interest in on the land and build package about 7 or 8 months ago, I showed them, this is your size block, this is your size house. They're like, yeah, that's the property pack there. No worries. I said, Damo found another block and house and land package 4 streets away from yours, from another client of ours. They're building their 4th property with us. And same size block, same size land. It was 95 grand difference. So I said, now that you're 95 grand up, and you haven't even turned sore yet, you've just got your build support handover happening. And they were like, just fucking, CJ, I saw before your jaw hit the floor. Poor little Cody, I'll say little Cody, that wonderful lady, Cody, she don't fucking worry about being in debt anymore. She's like, now I believe, now I've got it. I said, well, let's see what the property value is going to be by the time the end of your bill comes around, mate, which is bloody gold. I haven't read Paul's comment there, Dane. Go for it, mate.
Thanks, guys. Where I suspected it might have been a bit of media hype, fucking typical.
Yeah.
Hence the reference to the last 5 years, Australia versus US dollars, plus interest rates should increase the DOHAS monthly as well, which is 100% true, mate. They do actually go and fucking analyze that every year. Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much, mate. I read your comment in haste, mate. I was wondering where the 0.73 or 0.76 came from. It was the 5-year US Australian US dollar thing there. So, mate, thank you for clarifying that with me. I'm really, really loving this part here, and I know that Deb's with us. And it's funny when we go down a little rabbit hole as far as finance goes, Dane. It pings left, right, and center. Let's talk about the changing of the guard that you mentioned in your opening stanza as far as the rules of the road go, as far as buying property up here in Queensland goes. I'll talk about what it used to be, and you can maybe talk about the current state of play. Is that all right?
Yeah, 100%.
Great. When people have come to me over the years, and we're like, okay, cool, there's some places down here in Victoria, there's some places here in New South Wales, there's some places here in Queensland. And we put the little goose eggs on the map there that we freely put out for everyone during our free training. And I'm like, out of those 3 areas, which one would you like to invest in or buy your own home in? So buying your own home is a bit more of a thing because you're obviously posted there, so you don't really have fucking too much choice if you want to use your government and defence grants. They're like, oh, I'm from Victoria, and I know a lot about that area. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, okay, cool. I said, look, based on from what I can see, I think the numbers work for you. Let's now talk about the dynamics of buying a property down there, though. I said, so you used to live down there, right? They're like, yeah. I said, have you ever bought a property down there? I'm like, oh, I just lived in mum and dad's house before I joined the Navy. I'm like, well, let me now tell you what actually goes on with buying a property down there. I said the land supply and demand in Melbourne has been high for many, many years, as it is in the broader Sydney region as well, which is now Southeast Queensland's absolutely caught up to and probably overtaken. And Dane will explain that in a second, demand. So it's probably going to be a 12-month lead time. So we can go and find you a package right now, land and build package in your desired location. And it's going to be 12 months until you can actually settle on the block of land and start the build. They're like, oh, yeah, no worries. That's pretty good. It gives me a bit more time to save and whatever else. But I said, here's the thing. You are going to have to place, as soon as you sign the expression of interest, 48 hours later, you're going to need to put a 10% deposit down on the block of land. Let's call it $30,000. They're like, oh. And I said, and that is a non-refundable deposit. You need to go unconditional on your contracts 48 hours after you have signed the EOI. Otherwise, I'll just give it to the next person in the line. And then you've effectively got to wrap yourself in cotton wool for a full 12 months afterwards until you get to the point where you settle on the block of land. So if you have the speed wobbles and your circumstances change a little bit, they are ruthless down there, and they will take your $30,000 and sue you for damages. They're like, no, we're not going to buy in Victoria. That's not for me. I said, well, there's another, you can buy in Southeast Queensland, for instance. It's the antonym. So Dane, you maybe take over from here about how things used to be buying a property here in Queensland, probably up until about 6 months or so ago, and it is a bit of a moving target still.
I always think about it, buyers and sellers markets, right? So it was a much more buyer's market, let's put it that way. So for a seller saying, well, I want to make sure the buying terms are friendly enough that I'm able to attract someone. Because let's be honest, if someone comes through and goes, hey, I think I can get finance, but I'm not 100% sure, you'd be like, well, I'm going to consider that, because if they go over the line, so they have a finance clause, which effectively allows you to go along, get your finance done, get your valuation done, and so on and so forth, and then say, yeah, I'm happy, and then I go through. But because of the demand shift, once there's a demand shift, it changes the buying terms, because now the seller goes, well, fuck, if you can't say to me, well, I was going to say my ball's in the vice, but I'm not going to say that.
I'm glad you didn't.
But it is. But I can give you an unconditional, contract, and we can go through, and now I've got you. I'll just go, well, the next guy will. To the point, though, because I think it's been a very much of a transition. We had a few sort of Melbourne developers coming up, and it sort of became a bit new to us. We were like, oh, fuck, and they're like, no, we want an unconditional contract. And the change has been where I've seen it with some of the bigger developments that we've gone to that traditionally have been super friendly when it comes to buying
land lease, Stockland, and the like.
Avid, all those ones. Whereas now they turn around, and I sort of had one where I was talking to a client, they turn around and released a video, and they said, we will give priority to this. You give us a 10% deposit and go uncon. Once that's exhausted, the next will go to who's been top of the list, then owner, off versus investor. So if you don't have your finances, or we're not comfortable with doing that, you're effectively putting yourself on the outer straight away. The problem with that, though, is he would make who has the gold makes the rules. Fuck, Robbie, I should know that. You say it to me every day.
It's the golden
rule. If you're not in the pool, you're not going to benefit, right? So it's being able to say, well, these is how it fucking rolls now. So it's even more important to have our finance squared away. It's more important to be able to shop with confidence when we go to do that. But also, if the risk is there, then the risk is there. We might not be able to play that. So it is a changing demographic at the moment. So it's every fucking time we go to a different estate or anything like that, it's a different term. Yeah. And then you go to one like, oh, they were fine. Next release, they've changed.
Yeah. So one of the limiting factors, team, is this. For Debbie Debbie can do a pre-approval for you or an on-paper approval for you till the cows come home. But ultimately it means fucking zero. It's the peace of mind and the deeper level analysis that if you were to apply for finance now based on current bank policy, and if the numbers all stack up based on the valuation, which I'll get to in a second, you would be fine. Pending bank approval, credit analysis, LMI, etc. Right? The bank needs to go and do a formal valuation. For you to get full finance approval in writing from the bank, we're going to give you the money, done. The bank needs to do a valuation of that property, i.e. send a registered valuer out to the block and do a tactical site survey, to use a military term, including photographing the pegs in the ground, to come back and go, that block, based on the current comparable sales, this is what we now think it's worth. The limiting factor that Dane speaks about, team, is that generally doesn't happen until 6 or 8 weeks before the land registers with the council, as then is now then open for the builders to go and start putting tradies on the block. So if your block that you've taken off the market doesn't register for 12 months, the banks, it's still a greenfield site. All the bloody earthworks and stuff are still happening until they make the streets and the footpaths and put the lights up and the greenery, bench all the sites, and bang. So then they go out there and do the valuation. So it's effectively you are taking on an extra level of risk when it comes to going unconditional on the land contract without a valuation being done. Now, the valuations at the moment, team, there's zero issues. Deb is providing us some indications that when the bank does the valuation for the client, she doesn't give us the full amount. She doesn't give us the full details, but she's like, came in on contract price, fellas, or even a little bit more than contract price. So there's no issue as far as the valuation goes. But that term that I used before about people buying when COVID was upon us started with B and rhymes with a leaf. If you have belief in what you're doing and belief that your circumstances won't change and belief that you're buying in the right area for the right reasons and you want access to the block that you've somehow got your fucking hands on through the bloody Chocky Wheel system or Eventbrite system, no one uses the Chocky Wheel, that was a joke, system to get yourself a block, you can walk away from that block, no dramas, but the next release that comes out, you'll fucking pay 30, 40, 50 grand more. So, it's a bit of who dares wins, fortune favors the bold sort of analogies here that, and the great news is unless you call your boss a prick in the military or come to work with a joint hanging out of your mouth, you're not going to get sacked. Unlike being in the real world.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably call me a prick, Dane, if you said sorry soon afterwards. But, we'll talk about that later. But so, therefore, the likelihood of you guys losing your job or having the speed wobbles and having that change of circumstances is pretty low. So, yeah, we're just seeing as a bit of a changing of the guard at the moment, even Stockland for one of their biggest states up at the sunny coast. And again, good luck trying to find a block up there. So I don't mind disclosing that's where it is. And any block, any package you're going to need up there is going to start with a 7. So that's going to immediately, discount some of the people anyway. Tomorrow's like, you're not supposed to say where we're looking at the moment, but it's okay, Tam. They'll give you maybe a 30-day finance clause to get all your stuff in order and get your bill contracts done and get the pre-approval done with a mortgage broker. And then they're like, righto, it's crunch time. You're either going to proceed or you're going to exit, and we'll give it to someone else and they'll pay more. Yep. So it's just the lay of the land. Our job here is to not scare you. Our job is to inform you about what's going on, and for those people that had a crack back in COVID, they're 200 grand up. Oh, sorry, Tal. She's like, I miss you. But yeah, certainly, it's you've got to have that belief and got to know that your circumstances are unlikely to change, and you've got to put a bit of a buffer in there. So yeah, Deb, if you're listening or whatever else, certainly happy to take your comments. But that's just the dynamics about what's going on. It's not that's us right now. Hi, Dane. Absolutely, Jakey. So it's just one of those things, mate.
Yep.
One of those.
I'm going to give Jakey. You're going to have to have a laugh at this. With your Facebook name just being a single name, Robbie sends me a message, goes, who the fuck's this bloke trying to get into the... And I was like, oh, don't worry. He just hasn't got his full name on there.
Oh, yeah.
But you guys definitely are who dares win from that perspective. I think too, Robbie, is the other thing is exhausting all options, because what we've seen too, when we've seen people go, oh, look, it's not able to proceed or whatever it is, the developer doesn't go, oh, yeah, that block, that was $300,000. I'll keep it. He goes, thank you very much. See you later. I'm going to now make that block $350, and then puts it back out. So it's so important, because once it goes back, it ain't going to come back the same price.
I was just about to say, so that it's almost, you're having a bit of a crack and you're backing yourself into a corner, which is not in line with what we put forward as safe and secure property investing. But also you need to have a crack at some stage to be able to make sure you can benefit from the market, which is doing that at the moment. And case in point, Tamara's dad is buying a block of land, doing a house and land package with us in a certain location. He's had a few changing. So they bought a block of land for $370,000. And they went unconditional on the contracts, paid a bloody 5% deposit, 17 grand or whatever it was on the deposit, non-refundable. They've had a change of circumstances due to some other great stuff happening in their life. And they're like, can we get out of this block now? I'm like, I don't think so, because you're already unconditional, and they're down in New South Wales, so they know this. That's the rules of the road down there anyway. So I asked the question and went back through the builder and asked the question, and the developer's like, yeah, no worries. Very surprisingly so, they're going to tear up their EOI, submitted electronically. Here's your 16 grand back, and now that $370,000 block is going to be repriced at $420. There you go. You've got 1 week to sell it. So first of all, tomorrow's dad's like, thank you so much. You got our money back. Fucking awesome. Yeah, no worries at all. But now we're like, oh, fuck, that's an extra 50 grand on that same block of land. Why? Because it registers in 2 weeks' time. And trying to get your hands on a block, which is not 12 months away, is fucking hard. But yeah, so that's literally the backing into the corner, technically from a legal perspective, is occurring. But the developers are like, give us back your EOIs. Here's your deposit back. Boys, let's fucking resell this, and it'll go like that. Yep. It's crazy, crazy times. I think Tamara put in there before about the wild, wild west, and it's one of those things. So yeah, let us know if that all makes sense to you guys as well, please.
It's almost like they welcome it a bit. Like, whereas before, they would be, which I was surprised when they got the deposit back, to be honest, man, when you told me that.
Yep.
But whereas before, it just seems like they're almost like, oh yeah, bring it back, and then they're going to shoot it back out through there.
Well, they're doing these ones. Oh yeah.
We had another one, which was a builder who had a put and call doing it with somebody else, and I was talking to him on the phone about an unrelated thing. And he goes, "Oh mate, you never guess. We had like someone had defaulted or couldn't go through on a property," and I was like, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "And the developer said thank you and whacked 70 grand on it on the land and said straight back to the builder." All right, man. And then I was just like, fuck, that is mental. And that's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Hey, so the point that Luke Millwood's provided there, and Deb, you and I have had some conversation with this. I'm like, all right, cool. If they can't get finance for the complete house and land package, why don't they just get finance for the land alone? So there's a few little peculiar rules of the road here, ladies and gents, because that's what people go, well, if getting the block of land is the most important bit, maybe we just settle on the block of land and then sell it and fucking walk away with our own 50 grand, profit. In principle, that's absolutely what you could do if the developer was forcing you to settle on the block. You can still cancel the build contract under the finance clause because there's still a finance clause attached to that, right? So you'll still be able to do that for sure. But here's the thing, when a lot of banks, the majority of banks will allow you to have a 90% loan on a house and land package. And the servicing of that loan will also include a rental income, which is going to become associated with that, even though it's in the future. But the bank's still taking it into account now. When you buy a block of land, the majority of lenders, ladies and gentlemen, will need that you need a 30% deposit, 30 or 40% deposit on the block. And there's no rental income included. So that drops your servicing down a lot. So we've seen it. Yeah, there you go. LVR changes with land only. You only have to be able to service and you have to be able to service without the rent, Deb's going to say there. So it's, you took the words right out of my mouth, Deb, as you were typing there, and I'm just providing that extra context. So we've seen it plenty of times, Dane, haven't we? You're like, oh, well, if the rent's going to be $500 a week, that's only $26,000 a year. That's not going to change my servicing too much. We've seen it plenty of times, haven't we, mate, that people might have a $350,000, $400,000 borrowing capacity as a couple, maybe a couple of billy lids. Mum doesn't want to go back to work. I'm a stay-at-home mum. And then when the numbers gets crunched and we're like, but if you go find a job for only $30,000, Karen, your borrowing capacity jumps up to $600,000. So only $30,000 a year can make a massive difference on what your overall borrowing capacity is because it's surplus income that's sitting on the top of all your cost of living. So it really accelerates it up there a lot. So don't just go, oh, I'll be right just because I don't have any bloody rental income coming in. So, it's really important that you do, you go. 26 grand can reduce a loan by $130,000. And then there's individual circumstances as far as that goes as well. So it may really impact on your ability to even hold the block, Luke. Just please take heed of all these things that we're bloody talking about it. It's all right, Deb. I got your back, buddy. I got your back.
Need you for the numbers, not the spelling.
Oh, far out. Hey, let's finish on one other thing, Dane, which is really, really prevalent at the moment. Thank you so much for all the awesome interactions that we've had so far. Some of the other changing goalposts at the moment include fixed price build contracts. or the emerging trend of lack thereof. So yeah, certainly for many of you, and including some of you that I've seen online tonight, that you've been able to secure a block that doesn't register until September, October this year, which is actually not that fucking far away, quite frankly. It's only 6 months away, thereabouts. The majority of builders, including the 5 or 6 builders we use in Southeast Queensland alone, will only provide a fixed price contract for 2 or 3 months. Because shit is changing for them. What I mean by shit, that's a technical term for prices of trades and materials. That's what shit means, right? It's changing for them on a weekly basis. So, it's, yes, Renee, I thought of you. I'm like, she's probably wondering, why the fuck don't I have a property presented to me right now? Because our land register's in 4 or 5 months. Renee, you are a case in point, buddy, that the majority of funds, here we go, some builders are putting it up 100% price fluctuation on materials and labor. So there's all these different clauses, Ben and Renee and everyone else coming into build contracts right now. There's only one builder, and I will keep this under our belt. Those people in the group, of course, that are past their success package, reach out to us and we'll obviously let you know what's going on here. Because it's a very, very valuable thing that we've been able to negotiate and put in place exclusive for serving members of the Axon community. There's one builder that's committing to a fixed price 12-month build contract. Now, that is a huge amount of peace of mind. And I think the nuts in the vice that Dane didn't want to talk about is certainly the builder is backing themselves into this corner, but they are a gigantic multi-million-dollar publicly listed builder that's predominantly served in Melbourne over the last 50 years. So it's not like they've been around 5 years. They've got huge coffers and very long runway as far as being able to mitigate risk. And they can see a gap in the market right now where other builders that don't want to commit to doing even a 3-month contract, they're like, so it's fine. If business comes to us, we'll build the house. If we make a fucking 10 grand loss on it over the time, so what? At least they've been able to keep their trades and keep their people employed, and they keep, the doors open. So that's a bit of a game of chess that we're all playing at the moment, Dane, isn't it? So me, you and the property specialist especially, about, all right, how can we now make sure that client for that price point with that builder and that location and that timeline, how does it all sort of fit together? So, Renee, you are case in point. You and Tim have been on our part of our thoughts and conversations a lot lately, and we think we've got it nailed down for you real soon, buddy. Because we don't want to wait. We don't want to kick the can down the road. Because Dane, you and I got a email 24 hours ago saying, "Hey team, heads up, we're putting up prices 15 grand. If there are EOIs in right now, you got till this Friday to get the contract signed, or you've got till 5 p.m. today to get EOIs in. Otherwise, everything's going up by 15 grand. Sorry, team, it's just the market." We're like, fucking, and that can make the difference for some people, right? Yeah. So it's bloody crazy, mate. It's crazy. Dane, what are your thoughts on it?
I get it, to be honest. The last thing we want is a builder going bust halfway through a build. So I understand with what they've just gone through. A lot of them are apprehensive, just like, fuck, mate. Like at the start, it was timber, then it was bricks, then it was concrete, then it was this. So they never know, because underneath them is their subcontractors and obviously the materials, and that's ever changing. So for a builder to predict what they're going to be able to perform at is highly unlikely. And like you said, I think it's all about being agile. Obviously with that builder that you're speaking about at the moment, being able to commit to fixed price. Fantastic builder, do a great product, actually. And they are just, like you said, they got a lot of coffers, there's a lot of stuff behind them. But at the same time, I get it. I understand, so it's an easier story for me to tell, the builder just doesn't want to do it. Because I'm like, well, in the end, we don't want to hold the builder down over the thumb and go, well, mate, we're not fucking committing to it. Because they go along and they aren't making any money, they're not going to build your house. So we need to make sure we're very diligent when we go through it. We weigh up and we have, we tender land to some builders and stuff to get a very tight price, making sure they are very strong. We go through, do a lot of our quality assurance on them and stuff. So we're putting our name next to them from that perspective. But it is a very changing environment.
Even now, mate, we're getting blocks that, owner occupiers, people that are, coming down to Southeast Queensland and JA, I got your note there, buddy. We'll absolutely connect soon. Soph, can you just chuck the details in for JA to get in touch with us, please? Owner-occupiers that are getting posted down to southeast Queensland, they're already forward planning, going, all right, babe, let's move down there. We can use our HPAS, we can use our first home owners grant, we can get our DOHO's loan, whatever it's going to be. But it's no good waiting till you get down here and then starting, because you won't fucking start building until the end of your posting cycle. So you do need to start putting a plan in place now. So we're getting people that can get their blocks of land directly from the developer. It's called a retail block. And then, as Dane said, we then go and get 2 or 3 tenders from the builders and go, right, who's going to give us the best price and the best inclusions and the best, if they're on our posse, they're fucking good to go. So it's not like, that builder. It comes down to value for money. What can you get for your money? And in fact, there's a builder that's given us some price increases recently, and we're like, fuck that. Let's go get another quote from another builder, and it's coming in 15 grand cheaper. Well, the 40 grand price rise is now only 15 grand is what I mean. So, even though that's going to have to be passed on at some stage, would you rather pay 15 grand more or 40 grand more? No one has to answer that. I know the answer already, right? So that's just some of the little background dynamics that goes into the life of a couple of property coaches here at Axon.
Mate, an hour like that.
Like that. Yes, it fucking did go fast tonight. Thank you so much for all of your comments, everyone. We'll be in touch real soon. If you guys are already inside of our ecosystem, you like what you heard and you think it applies to you, ping your coach straight away, and we'll get it, and we'll be on your tail, and we'll do another coaching session with you real soon. Thanks, Dane. Loved it. Good job, so Tamara and the rest of the team.